Everyone, welcome to the session again. So in the last video we have seen about cluster IP, node port, and then we have also learned about the load balancer, right? So all these three topics you remember. So all these three topics we have discussed. So kindly go and learn about the architecture and some use cases also I have explained in the previous video. In this video, we are going to see how cluster IP is going to work in action, right? Using command prompt as well as Visual Studio YAML file, that is imperative as well as declarative way, right? So what we have discussed last time, we have discussed, right? So if there is a cluster and you have declared cluster IP service, it means any request from your outside world, right? Any request which is coming from your outside world, you will not be able to access it. Okay. So let's say if your request is coming from outside the world, that is from open place, then you will not be able to reach any of the pods. To achieve this, what we need to do is we need to first create a pod. Okay, you can say it as a landing pod or a client where when you go inside the cluster first, then you need to request on the cluster IP service of the node, right? I repeat, you need to request on the cluster IP service of the node, and that then the cluster IP service what will do, it will route to the different pods using kubeproxy. Hope this is clear to all of you what I tried to say. If you are trying to request from outside of the cluster, in case of cluster IP service, you will not be able to reach on the request on any of the pods, right? So to do that, what you have to do, you first need to log into the client. Okay, from the client you need to request on the cluster IP service of the node, and then that cluster IP service request will take you to different pods using the help of kubeproxy. Okay, so let's see this all in action. Okay, uh, so this is my command prompt. Let's ensure everything is clear. So kubectl get all. Okay, so I don't have anything. I just have a default Kubernetes service. So what I will do is I will first show you the file, right? Okay, so this is my file. So if you see, there is one deployment. I'm doing a deployment where I'm doing 4 pods deployment, right? 4 replicas I'm deploying. So if you remember in this picture, you can see 6 pods are there, right? So not, yeah, here 6 pods are there. I think I spelled out like here 4 pods, but it is 6. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is I am using the deployments. I am deploying 6 pods, which is similar to my diagram. So I deployed 6 pods using deployment file. Okay, so now what is deployment and all? I have already covered in the previous video where I have in detail discussed about the replication controller, replica set, and then deployment. You must go and understand that concept first. Okay, so what I'm doing here, 6 replica set I have deployed. Now the late new thing is here is I am doing a service deployment, right? So what is service here? You see, service is of type cluster IP. Okay, and API version is V1. I gave the name of that service as backend service, right? And I gave a tag or label or selector, you can say, as a backend. And these are the 2 ports. So this is port 80 and target port is 80 as well, which is based on my which one. So target port is the container port. Okay, whatever container port is there, that is my target port. Okay, and I'm opening this packet service as port 80. Right, so this is all about this YAML file. Now let me go ahead and deploy this so that will quickly learn about it. So kubectl apply -f. Okay, then I will write my file name, which is in my current directory only, cluster IP _1. Okay, so I pressed enter. So soon you will see, okay, this got implemented, this got deployed. Now let's see kubectl get all. If I press enter, so you will see 6 pods are in either in creating or in the running state, right? So let it load. Meanwhile, we can see, so 6 pod and cluster IP service we have implemented, right? So now you see, this is my 6 pods, which is in creating state, and this is my cluster IP. Okay. So now if I try to curl on the cluster IP, right, whether I will be able to do it, let's see, curl and IP address of my backend service, that is cluster IP. So you will see nothing is happening, right? It will time out, or it will just throw an error. What I will do is, now I will show is nothing happened, right? No output came. Now same command we will execute after some while. Okay, let me show it to you, but I will just make a note of it somewhere. Okay, so I will just create a note of it. So I'll just control V here. Okay, now as per the architecture diagram, we discussed that we cannot directly reach out to these pods, right? You can take any of the IP address of the pod as well if you want. So kubectl get all. Okay, IP address is not. So kubectl get pods hyphen o wide. So you got the IP address of pods, and now you try to do the curl URL pod. Okay, so nothing will happen. Okay, both on cluster IP as well as pod, you are not able to reach, right? So I'll just stop it now. Now let's go to the diagram again. So we are not directly able to reach out to these pods. We are not able to reach out to the cluster IP as well. So what we will do is, from outside, that is my local system, we will create one pod first, that, and we will name it as client. Okay, now let's name it as client. So I will create a pod kubectl run client. Okay, and let's give images and nginx. Okay, so I gave, and the pod got created. So very soon it should get created. Okay, kubectl get all. Here you will be able to see a new pod, that is my client. Okay, so this is currently in creating state. Okay, now what we will do is, we will log into this particular pod. Okay, we will try to log in, or we will try to go inside this pod using kubectl exec command, right? Kubectl exec, then hyphen it interactive, then client is client, and then I'll mention as hyphen, since it is command prompt, right? So bin sh. Okay, so what it is telling is, kubectl command, this got deprecated. What I did, kubectl exec hyphen it client, and then hyphen, I think I should write here double hyphen. Okay, so now I am able to go inside the pod. Now we are currently inside the pod, right? Now what we will do is, from this pod we will try to curl now. Okay, now what we will do is, we will try to, let's do it on the cluster level first. Okay, so I will copy it. If you see, this is the cluster IP, right? So I will send a request to the cluster IP. What I'm going to do is, now I'm inside this client. Now I am with this dotted line, you can read, I am sending a request to this cluster IP, and cluster IP in the end, in the backend, under the hood, it will, what it will do is, it will send the request to any of the pods here. Okay, so now let's see it. Okay, so if you go ahead and execute here, so control V. Okay, and I just press enter, so you can see, right, welcome to nginx, and I'm able to log into the pod, right? uh what else we can do here? Let's try to directly point to the pod. Are we able to do it? Control V. Yes. Okay, so within a I mean, when we are inside the cluster, right, we are directly able to do it, right? We are directly able to send the request to the pod, but we don't want, right? Client does not doesn't want to reach out to each pod. What we are trying to do is, client is sending a request to cluster IP service, and then in the backend it is sending the request to any of the pod. Because what is the problem here is, if in case any of the pod get deleted, right? So this IP address will get changed. So I will not know the IP address of this pod, but instead, even if these three pods will get deleted, I'm sending a request to cluster IP. These three pods, because it is a deployment, ultimately new three pods will come and request will go any of this pod, and my service will keep on serve. I mean, my request will keep on serving, right? Client will never get downtime. This is static. The IP of this cluster IP service is static, right? So we have understood in this example, right? Now, in while we were discussing about the architecture, we also discussed, like, let's say, if we are creating a DB pod, right? So what will happen if a pod we are creating called DB pod, then we will be able to access. Yes, we will be able to access by using the IP address. But let's say if you want, by using the IP address directly, the way we have just now saw, right? We curl and I gave the pod details, pod IP, we will be able to do it. But let's say if there is any deployment here, and that is ensuring that okay, minimum one number of pod is always maintained there. In that case, what you need to do is, you just need to create a, you need to expose it to service, right? Uh, yeah, see, you need to expose it to the service. Okay, from outside, if you'll try to access, the request will get failed immediately. That will happen, right? If you are trying to request from this pod to here, then this will get failed here itself. The request will get failed. Okay, you will not be able to reach to this pod directly from outside. Okay, first you need to log into this one pod, and then if it is a deployment, then you create a service for that deployment, because you can directly reach out to the pod using a curl and put the IP address. But if it is a deployment, the pod will get deleted in, if in case the new pod will come and the IP address will get changed. So in that case, you need a service to be deployed on top of pod, right? So you need to expose. What command you have to write? You just need to write here a command called, I mean, let me write here itself. So you just write kubectl expose, and then you need to write pod. Okay, if it is small, let me zoom here. Okay, what I'll write, kubectl expose pod, and then I will give my pod name. Let's say if it is a DB pod, right? I'll give DB pod, and then I'll open any port here. Okay, so port equals to, what is the port? That, let's say 3306, and I will mention the target port. So I'll mention target hyphen port equals to, let's say 3306 again. Okay, 6, and then what I will mention here is name. Okay, what is the name of service I want? So hyphen name equals to, let's say DB hyphen service. Okay, this is the service, equals to type equals to, I mean, hyphen type equals to cluster IP. Okay, so if this command you give, right, what will happen is, you will be able to create a service. Okay, so it will create, it will create a service for you. You will be able to create this service. Okay, so this service, once you are able to recreate, then even if this pod will get deleted, a new pod will come, your request will never die. Okay, so you just have to send a request to your client will send a request to your DB service, this cluster IP service. Okay, and then it will be able to request it to the pod. Okay, this is very simple actually. Send it to back, export. Here there is no option, I think. So I will just change the color back to white. Okay, so I hope you have understood. So this is my cluster IP in this case. This is overall, it is a cluster, and you are able to serve the request. Okay, so we have seen everything in live using this commands as well. Okay, now let's suppose you don't wanted to execute this particular command, right? So what you need to do is, in your YAML file only, what you need to do is you just needs to write a script like this. Okay, you just uncomment this with a separator. You create another service and you can name it as a DB service. Okay, it is a cluster IP type. You can make any selector name. I mean, you can give a selector name, and then you can just give port and target port. So what it will do is it will create a based on the pod name, DB pod, it will create a select cluster IP for it, and then you just send a request to cluster IP. Okay, so I hope you have understood this concept of cluster IP service in Kubernetes. Okay, let's catch up in the next video where we are going to learn about the node port. Thank you guys.